Stephen McCauley from Boston After School and Beyond. I'm the Program Director for Summer Learning, and I'm joined by Katie Tosh from our team from Boston After School and Beyond, and she is the Program Director for Measurement and Outreach. So welcome to today's Boston Summer Learning Community webinar for new aligned sites. It's been exciting for Katie and me to meet many of you recently or talk to you recently about our summer work and to also learn about your summer work. We are excited today to share more detail about the summer learning community, listen to your questions and comments, and have a conversation about this upcoming summer. In our time together today, we wanted to cover the goals of the Boston Summer Learning Community and its history, what types of programs join the Boston Summer Learning Community as an aligned site, and requirements of participation, which includes items like consent forms, common program development sessions, and an MOU. We also aim to share the value of participating in the community. As you'll see, participating organizations and sites experience this value year-round, including during the summer itself. Katie and I will run through most of our content first and leave ample time for questions at the end. So please feel free to jot down questions at your desk as we proceed, or you'll also see on the right side of your screen a box for you to type questions into. So please feel free to use that as well. And during the questions, we'll also unmute the lines for you to speak over the phone if you wish. We'll be sending out the slides and the recording of the webinar next week, or later this week, excuse me. So we want to first start by providing some context for the summer learning community, including its history. Since 2010, Boston After School and Beyond and Boston Public Schools have partnered to co-design the Summer Learning Project. This is a school community approach to summer learning. Nonprofit organizations and Boston Public Schools co-develop programming, and enrichment staff and certified teachers co-deliver programming focused on academic skills and program quality. We anticipate approximately 20 summer learning project sites in summer 2015. One of the design tenets of the Summer Learning Project is consistency in program measurement, but flexibility in approach. So all of our Summer Learning Project sites since 2010 have implemented common evaluation tools to benchmark progress against goals and inform continuous improvement. This consistency in program measurement generated a lot of interest citywide in evaluating summer learning and summer enrichment outcomes. So since 2012, program providers from across the city have adopted a common approach to program quality measurement in summer. These sites, with a wide variety of program models, are dubbed aligned sites. This summer, we are anticipating approximately 55 aligned sites for summer 2015. Any referrals you may have are welcome, or if your organization wants to have multiple sites this summer in the aligned cohort, we also welcome conversations around that as well. So taken together, in summer 2015, we're hoping to have 75 total sites, 55 part of the aligned cohort, and 20 part of the Summer Learning Project, all encompassing our entire Boston Summer Learning community. This community defines, implements, and measures program quality consistently and utilizes the data, trends, and next steps that emerge from the common use of measurement tools. All of our sites meet year-round to plan for summer. Many of you were at the Summer Learning Summit in February, which is a great example of how the common measurement allows sites to collaborate and learn from one another. With measurement and year-round gatherings serving as the backbone, we pursue three goals together: to increase access to summer learning for students, and as we'll talk about later, youthservices.net is an online platform that provides a shared forum to track student access. We also aim to improve the quality of programming, and common data allows sites to pursue continuous improvement together. We also aim to scale best practices. Objective data collection enables top performers to emerge and share what works for high-quality program design to inform the wider Boston summer learning field. There are general parameters for participation in the summer learning community as an aligned site. The characteristics we look for in aligned sites optimize the implementation of common measurement tools, and we'll share more details about those tools shortly. Aligned sites serve Boston Public School students in a wide variety of age ranges, and we should note that some sites serve exclusively Boston Public School students, whereas others serve Boston Public School students in addition to students from other districts or programs, and either is fine. Aligned sites run summer programming approximately 4 weeks in duration, but we also are accepting a close variation thereof. So for example, we have several overnight camps that are part of the aligned cohort. Aligned sites serve a consistent cohort of students during the summer, and we recommend that this be a minimum of 10 students per the measurement tools we'll cover later. In the aligned cohort, any type of program is welcome. Some focus just on enrichment, some focus only on academics, or some feature both. And any of those combinations is fine. During the Q&A today on this webinar or after the webinar, Katie and I can answer specific questions you have about these characteristics as your organization determines if you're eligible for the aligned cohort and or would like to join the aligned cohort for summer 2015. So with that context in mind, we are going to dive into more detail about the measurement tools and requirements of being part of the Boston Summer Learning Community as an aligned site. And I'm going to turn it over to Katie Tosh, my colleague, to talk about that.
Thanks, David, and thanks everyone for being with us this morning to learn about the aligned cohort and what it would mean for your program to be involved. So I'm going to go through some of the requirements to be an aligned site, and it's probably going to seem like a lot of information to new people, so jot down any questions you have either at your desk or in the question box, and we'll have ample time at the end to answer any questions that you have. So before I go into the requirements, I wanted to show you one of the key benefits that you'll receive as a site from participating in the aligned cohort. And that's this report called the Program Report for Improvement in System Measurement. And so all of the tools that I'm about to discuss with you and the data collection that we go into, you'll get all of that back in the fall. And this is the main summative report that we give you, but we also create other reports as well that you'll have access to through uservices.net. And so for everything that we look at, including demographics, program quality, attendance, number of students served, you'll get this report which shows you your site's information, and it will compare it to all of the other sites that are participating in this summer learning community. So as David said, that's going to be 75 sites total. So you'll see your program score compared to the average of those 75 sites. And then you'll also get a comparison to a research-informed benchmark. And so this allows you to not only get all this information back on your program, but really see how you're doing in comparison to research-informed benchmarks and the Boston Summer Learning Community in general. So I wanted to start with that before we dive into all of the tools. And so looking at the first requirement, we measure program quality collectively. And so we do this through two perspectives. The first is with the Assessment of Program Practices tool, referred to as the APT. And this is a tool by the National Institute on Out-of-School Time, or NIOST. And how this works is a third-party observer from NIOST will visit your program once during the summer. This will be about a 3-hour visit. They want to get exposure to as many aspects of your programming as possible. And what they do is they assess and rate your program on various aspects of program quality. And so this is a really low lift for the program. Basically, all you have to do is work with NIOST on when to schedule the site visit to make sure that it's a good time for your program. It should be a day that's typical of your programming day. So that's really all you have to do, and they'll come and observe. So that's an easy lift for the program. The other way we get at program quality is through a youth survey called the Survey of Academic and Youth Outcomes, or the SAOY. And so this survey is administered once at the end of the program. It takes about 10 to 15 minutes. And this allows youth to reflect on their program experiences and rate your program on aspects of quality similar to what is captured on the APT. We do prefer electronic submission. That would just work through a SurveyMonkey link, and that makes everything much quicker and simpler on the back end for us to collect the data, process it, and get those reports back out to you. But we do know that access to technology can be a barrier at some sites, and so if that is a barrier for you, we do have a paper option, and that's fine. The SAOI is appropriate for students entering grades 4 or older. And if you serve students younger than that, that's fine. You can still participate as an aligned site. Just know ahead of time that this youth survey would not be something that those younger students would be filling out. If you want more information, more detailed information on these tools, you can visit the link that's on this slide, which we'll be sending out to you this week, to see more information on kind of more in-depth information than what I'm going to cover today. And so going back to the PRISM report that I showed you earlier, this is what it would look like for those program quality measurement results. We group everything from the APT and the SAOI into this one section on the PRISM. So you can see that we've broken down program quality into 3 broad categories: program organization and structure, supportive environment, and engagement in activities and learning. That very first column on the left-hand side that says perspective, the O means the observer perspective from the APT, and the Y indicates that it's the youth perspective from the SAOI youth survey. So you can see that program quality, we measure things like the nuts and bolts of program delivery, such as organization of activity, activities transition, scheduling, and offering, all the way down to things like the extent to which staff build relationships with and support individual youth, and the extent to which youth feel engaged and challenged in the program. Do they feel they have opportunities for leadership and responsibility? It's a wide range of categories that we capture under the program quality tools. And so on this report, you'll get your program score. That's that first column on the right-hand side. You'll see whether or not you've met the research-informed benchmark. And so the way these tools work, they're on a scale from 1 to 4, 1 meaning that your program never does these things, 4 meaning that your program does them all the time. And so we've set a benchmark of 3, which means that either the observer or the youth felt your program implemented the quality practices associated with these domains most of the time. And so if you're doing these things most of the time, you'll get a green check mark. If you're not meeting that benchmark, you'll get a yellow exclamation point. And then the next column, you'll see this average score for the aligned cohort. And so that will be the average of the 55 aligned sites this summer. And those little symbols, the green symbol means you're doing on par with everyone else. The red diamond means you're doing significantly worse than the cohort. And the yellow triangle means you're doing just slightly worse than the cohort. You'll also see all the way down in that bottom section, across from youth enjoy and feel engaged, there's a gold star. So if you're doing way better than the cohort, you get a gold star. And so the next column is all the summer programs. So as David mentioned, the 55 aligned sites plus the 20 summer learning project sites. You'll get to see the same comparisons to all 75 sites. And if you do this year after year, you'll get a comparison to your last year's score as well. And so what these comparisons and taking the collective data from the community allow us to do is really see what areas that we're struggling with overall. So if you look at the last two sections on here, opportunities for leadership and responsibility and youth have choice and autonomy, you can see that this sample program was not meeting the benchmark indicated by that yellow exclamation point, but they have green circles in comparison to both the aligned and all of the summer program cohorts. So that means that they're not meeting the benchmark, but they're doing on par with everybody else, which means that nobody is meeting the benchmark as a group. And so this information, this collective program quality data, allows us to pull out aspects of program quality like that that everyone is struggling with, and then that informs some of the topics that we'll focus on during the fall and winter in our peer learning communities. And so we'll pull things out like that the whole group is struggling with. We can also pinpoint programs that are really excelling in certain areas and give them an opportunity to talk to their peers on why they're succeeding in those areas so everybody else can learn from their success as well. So that's the core of being an aligned site, is this program quality measurement. And so the next thing that we'll ask you to do as an aligned site is to use youthservices.net to track attendance and demographic information. And so youthservices.net is a citywide online shared database to do a lot of things. First and foremost being record program participant attendance. It will allow you to schedule your program activities within there. It houses the demographic and survey data, and it will generate reports with the program and cohort data. And so that PRISM report that you've seen, that will be generated and accessed via youth services this summer. It also allows us to track programs and students over time. And so we have about 100 sites that we work with who are tracking attendance and student data through this system. And so some of them use our measurement tools, and others, like the Mayor's Youth Council, who don't use our tools, are just tracking attendance through there. And so that lets us get a better picture of opportunities and access to out-of-school time programming in Greater Boston. So there will be more in-depth webinars on how to use youthservices.net in late May and early June. So the point of going over it today is just a broad level overview, but we want you to know there'll be much more detailed webinars closer to summer. And so what you'll have to do within Youth Services is to enter your program profile and set up your activities. And then once you do that, you can input or upload your student roster and track youth program attendance. And so if you already have an amazing system for tracking youth program attendance like Salesforce, there's an ability for you to export your data from your existing system and upload that to youthservices.net. So we try and make it as easy as possible. And as I said before, the demographic data and the measurement data will be hosted within youthservices.net as well. And so if you don't use the system to create the profile, track attendance, and allow us to input the demographic and measurement data in here, you will not be able to retrieve a PRISM report in the fall. So kind of streamlining and automating this process through Youth Services is what's allowing us to expand these measurement tools and this collective measurement out to more summer sites year after year. So this is what it looks like. I just kind of wanted to show you, so when you or your staff attend the webinars closer to summer, you'll kind of remember that this is what it looks like. So this is looking at your program's profile page. There'll be a few more fields we're adding on here to help us get information like the dates that your program is running, kind of a description of your program, contact information, more information like that. That'll help us get a better sense of the wide variety of programs participating in this cohort. As you can see, this is general information. There's tabs for enrollment, attendance, reports, and there's also a student view within here. And so if you look at the participant view, this is the place where you would enter information on each individual student. And this is also where you would be able to see any survey data linked to that student, that particular student's enrollment data, all sorts of stuff in here. And so in order to collect all this data, including the demographic data and the surveys from the youth, we will need for you to distribute and collect parental consent forms. And so the way this works, the consent forms will be letting parents know about the SAOY youth survey. They'll be letting them know about us collecting and tracking attendance and demographic data on their children. So what this is going to involve is that a signed returned parental consent form will be mandatory for students to be included in the data collection efforts. And so all languages, we're going to translate the form, or it is translated into 7 languages, I believe: Spanish, English, French, Haitian Creole, Cape Verdean, Chinese, Vietnamese, and English. And so all of those will be posted to our Summer Insight Center. The link is here, and again, we'll send that out, and you'll receive a follow-up email specifically about the consent forms if you choose to participate. So once you upload your student roster to youthservices.net, there will be a way that you can indicate whether or not each student has returned a signed parental consent form. And so this is a cool feature because say you have 50 students in your program and you only get consent forms back on 35, you can still upload your entire student roster and track attendance for your entire program, but indicating whether or not the student has consent lets us know that we're only going to do the surveys and collect the demographic data on those 35 who have returned the consent form. And so we'll ask you to retain the original signed parental consent forms for your records, and then make copies of them to be sent to Boston After School and Beyond for our records as well. And so that's the last thing I'm going to talk about. And so again, plenty of time for questions later, but now we're going to switch back to David to talk about some of the program development supports that will be coming up this spring.
Great. Thanks, Katie. So Katie just covered much of the measurement requirements that will be implemented during summer. So backtracking to spring, with those measurement domains in mind, we will organize central supports for programs to learn from one another. In mid-May, we will offer an APT training to discuss the domains incorporated within that tool and how this understanding can inform high-quality program design. And as you'll recall, the APT is a program quality measurement tool Katie mentioned earlier that is implemented by the independent evaluator at your site one time during the summer. So this training is required for new Align sites, and we've offered it the past 2 years to those in the Align cohort, and the feedback's been overwhelmingly positive. Align site representatives have said the training is very helpful to learn about the tool before the summer begins. So we hope you'll find it beneficial as well this spring. Following that, in late May, we will host with Boston Public Schools a Site Manager Summer Institute. The goal of this is for site managers to share best practices in academic content delivery, student socio-emotional growth, and program quality. This is required for Align sites, and we encourage 1 to 2 representatives per organization to participate. And the format of this Site Manager Summer Institute will be very similar to the summit that many of you attended in February. And lastly, in June, as Katie referred to earlier, we will host webinars on youthservices.net. And you saw screenshots of youthservices.net earlier in the presentation. At least 1 representative from each Align organization is required to participate on one of the webinars. And this should be the person or the individuals who will input data into the system on a regular basis. And that will provide a much deeper dive into the system and how to use it. So as you can see together, we have a very robust and ambitious agenda over the next several months. We're very excited to pursue our shared goals of increasing access to summer learning opportunities, improving the quality of programming, and scaling best practices with 75 total sites. In April, for next steps, your organization will receive a very simple form to complete to officially commit to the Align group in summer 2015. We'll ask questions like how many sites will participate in the Align cohort, number of youth you'll be serving at each of those sites, and approximate dates of operation. And this is for us to gain an understanding of how many sites will be committing to this work for this summer. This will then be followed by an MOU. And the MOU will reaffirm many of the points that Katie referred to earlier. For example, that programs are responsible for obtaining and tracking the parental consent using the Align consent form. It will also reiterate the measurement requirements and required participation in central meetings. And lastly, it will denote that the program is responsible for financially reimbursing Boston After School and Beyond for the cost of required tools not successfully administered. Now, it's important to note this will only apply if your organization cancels entire administrations of the youth survey and or the independent observation and does not attempt to reschedule either. So it really only kicks in if a program does not complete any of the requirements that they've signed on to completing. So this is a good time for us to pause. We have some small number of slides to go with more content, but we feel this is a good time to pause and turn it over back to you guys to ask us questions about anything you've heard thus far. Whether you have questions about the program quality tools, that would be the youth survey called the SAOY, or the independent observation called the APT. If you have questions about youthservices.net, the consent forms, the program development supports, or the next steps we talked about, the commitment form and the MOU. And you'll note that on the right side of your screen, you have a questions box to type in questions that you may have about any of these items. Or we've unmuted all of you, so you can feel free to speak into the phone if you have a question. So we'll pause right now to take any questions you have.
Yeah, so, but at least like during the families that I had a meeting March 19th, and you know what I mean, when there were others that were working with us in the level, but this is evidence for them to commit, you know what I cohort that I'm using. This is comfortable community sites that will receive $200 for an educational opportunity. And we need to create a professional file.
So we have a question from Maggie. She's asking, is the consent form unique to the Align sites, or could an addendum be added to consent forms a program already uses? So the consent form is unique to the Align sites. We have worked with programs in the past to incorporate our language into what they're already using. So we can definitely work with you on that. We would need you to send us your consent form so we could look at it and see the best way to integrate it. But it's asking specifically about the language around the measurement tools. It gives an overview of why we're doing this measurement work as a community and getting the consent to collect the data. So we can send that form to you, Maggie, sooner rather than later if you want to take a look at it so we can integrate it into what you're already using.
Well, I'm sure this was.
Are there any other questions about anything we've gone over so far? This could be anything about really basic questions about how the program tool implementation works, any questions you have about data collection in general. So Ellen asked, will we be addressing funding?
Oh, okay. So that's a great question, Ellen. So there is no money that transfers from Boston After School and Beyond to the Align sites for this initiative. But we do consider that these tools are in kind to your organization, so that in some ways is funding that you're able to implement these tools, the independent observation, the youth survey, the youthservices.net, the PRISM report you receive in the fall, all the year-round meetings, that's all in kind to your organization. But there is no separate funding cut to organizations that are part of this initiative. And now, if I didn't answer that question well, feel free to either follow up in the right side of the computer box or the right-hand side of your screen or over the phone. Or if anyone else has a follow-up to that as well, we welcome that. We've gotten some questions in the past, too, about the types of programs that are part of the Align cohort. We have a range of programs that are part of the Align cohort. As we mentioned earlier, from overnight camps to 5-week academic camps. And we welcome diversity within the Align cohort, the diversity of approaches. So whether that be academics, enrichment, overnight camps, job programs, anything like that, we do welcome that diversity of approaches. So we do not mandate any type of specific approach to be part of this. And we feel like based on our experience with this over the past several years, the common measurement tools really do allow all these programs to look at their program practices together, even if their approaches are different.
We did have a question on a previous webinar about the deadline for consent forms to be in. And so we typically say programs usually try and send those out as part of their enrollment packets. So if you're already doing recruiting and enrollment now, let us know and we can get you the consent forms sooner. But the deadline to get them back in and uploaded to youthservices.net is the first week of your program. So that allows us to start working with the school district to collect the demographic data on your participants earlier in the summer, so that we'll get the program reports back to you in the fall a little bit quicker. So that's how that works.
We've also heard a lot of questions about age range, and as we mentioned earlier in a prior slide, the age range is very wide, so it's from pre-K through basically rising 13th graders, those students who are entering college, entering their freshman year of college. So a wide range of age ranges is welcomed, and we have a pretty good mix of elementary, middle, and high school programs that were part of this last year and will be part of this again this summer in 2015.
Okay, so we have another question. How do we know if we are a site? When does that get finalized?
Well, we'll send out the commitment form hopefully by next week, and then we'll get back to programs shortly thereafter. So it shouldn't be too much of an onerous process, and we'll hopefully start welcoming sites into the cohort as early as next week. And if for some reason your program wanted a more official documentation of being part of this, whether you're using that for your own fundraising or your own program evaluation systems, we're happy to work with you earlier than that if that's more of a convenience for you. So we can talk with you this week about quote unquote officially joining the Align cohort for this summer much earlier than next week if that's advantageous to your organization. Okay, we're gonna have another period of time toward the end of the webinar for more questions. So if you have something brewing in your mind, feel free to type it into the screen on the right side of your screen, or just make a note of it for later. But Katie is going to cover an additional measurement tool that's applicable for students entering grades 5 and older. It's an optional tool, but we wanted to highlight this for you in case your organization may be interested in implementing this tool in addition to those tools we've already spoken of. And that tool is called the Holistic Student Assessment. So I'll turn it over to Katie to talk about that tool.
Okay, thanks, David. So everything that we've gone over so far is everything that's required. So implementing the program quality tools, using youthservices.net, and attending the program development supports. All of those are the required aspects of being an Align site. And there is one optional aspect to this that I'm going to go over now. And so that is the Holistic Student Assessment. So this is another youth survey, and it's in 2 parts. So as David said, it's appropriate for students entering grades 5 and older, and it's a youth survey that reflects aspects of student skills. So it's a 2-part survey. The first one is the Holistic Student Assessment diagnostic version, and this is something that the students would take either right before your program or in the very beginning of your program. And it's used to inform program design. And so this is an opportunity for the student to rate themselves on how they feel they're doing in various skill areas. So it's things like empathy, trust, optimism, relationships with peers and adults, self-motivation, things of that nature. And so the student rates whether or not they think these things are strengths or challenges for them. And so what you'll get for the diagnostic if you choose to implement that tool is something that looks like this for each student in your program who takes it. And so, as we said, these are the different kind of social emotional skills that are being captured by the HSA. So assertiveness, empathy, critical thinking, perseverance, academic motivation, learning interest. And so the way this works is that the Program in Education and After School Resiliency, otherwise known as PAIR, this is their tool. And so they keep a database of about 10,000 students, and they norm each student's response to the average of that student's grade and gender. And so based on how they're doing in comparison to all those other students, we figure out if it's a strength or a challenge for that student. So as you can see, all the green dots here are strengths, and the yellow ones are challenges. And so this gives you a picture of how the student is doing in these different aspects that might manifest themselves as behavior in the program, their engagement in the program, those different types of things. And so this is what we are talking about when we say that it informs program delivery, because you can really get a sense of how individual students are doing in these areas and what types of supports they might need throughout the summer. And so what you'll also get is, based on the number of strengths and challenges that a student has, they're assigned to a support need tier. And so they can either be high, moderate, or low need students. And so then you get to see a breakdown of the support need for your program as a whole. So this program that had over 100 students in it, you can see that it's about 42% low need, 39% moderate need, and 19% high need. So then you get a picture of your program's social emotional support need level, and that might inform how you deliver your programming. The other option is a retrospective survey. This is the HSA retrospective, and this is a separate survey that captures all of those same skills, but it's administered at the end of the program. This is, again, another about 10-minute survey for the students to fill out, and we usually administer it at the same time as the SAOY youth survey, so they can take 2 surveys at once. So what this does is it allows the student to reflect on how they're doing in these different skill areas as a result of participating in your program. And so the way the question is worded is it asks them, are they feeling about the same, much more, or much less in certain behaviors and skills that fold up into these broader categories. And the stem of the question is because of participating in this summer program. So this is really cool because it gives you an opportunity to, from the youth perspective, how have they grown in their skills because of your program? And so this is a really cool thing because all of the program quality tools that you'll be using, the Observer and the Youth Survey, capture elements of program quality that research indicates are linked to youth skill development. So that's kind of the main reason why, that's the main focus of the summer learning community, is providing opportunities for students to develop these skills. And so the program quality tools will let you know if you have the elements in place to develop skills in students. And then this optional youth survey is another piece of information where you can get from the youth themselves, are they developing those skills in your program? And so if you were to do that, your PRISM report would have a couple more pieces of information on it. You can see the pyramid and the bar graph in that second section with the HSA information. And again, with this, you would get your program's information and the comparison to all of the programs throughout the summer who use this tool. So that's an optional thing we wanted to offer to you and go over it today. You can see in addition to what's required, here's this other optional youth survey that gives you a lot more information about youth skills. And so now we'll take more questions. So we've gone over what's required. You've had a chance to think about that. I presented this optional youth skill assessment survey that you can be a part of. And again, it's for students in grade 5 and older. And so we will see if you guys have any more questions on that. I believe you are all still unmuted. And it looks like we have another question already. So this one is saying the HSA and PAIR are directly connected to the ACT framework, correct? Yes. So the skills captured by the HSA are some of the same skills captured on the ACT framework. And so the ACT framework, for those of you who might not be familiar with it, it's a framework that Boston After School and Beyond has developed that stands for Achieve, Connect, Thrive, so the ACT skills framework. And so that looks at, there's 12 skills captured under that, 4 for each of the 3 Achieve, Connect, and Thrive categories. And so that's a framework that guides most of our work in terms of looking at opportunities for youth to develop those ACT skills and the elements of program quality and delivery that support ACT skill development. And so the HSA is a tool that does capture some of those ACT skills. There's not a complete 100% overlap or alignment between the ACT framework and the HSA, but we will be, actually, very timely question, we are working on some handouts and documents that will really make it more clear how the ACT framework aligns to our skill assessment tools that we can send out to you probably sometime closer to the summer when they're ready. Another question, the HSA is given to the students at the beginning and end of the summer. Yes, so that is one way it can work. So the HSA, there's the diagnostic in the beginning of the summer and the retrospective at the end of the summer. And you can definitely do both of them, or if you just want to do one or the other, that's totally fine too. So if you wanted to just start with the diagnostic and do that this summer, that's fine. If you just wanted to do the retrospective, that's totally fine too. But most programs do use both.
And also a note on the HSA with the consent forms, if you were to administer the HSA diagnostic, which is before the summer, that would necessitate your organization to have all the consent forms in by that date, which is a little bit earlier than we had talked about earlier, but that would be necessary in order for you to administer the HSA diagnostic to those students, to have the consent form in by that time. And the HSA diagnostic is included within the aligned consent form as well, just to cover everything.
We have another question. Does it matter how long your program is? Are you collecting data for just 4 weeks or all summer if you are operating for 10 weeks? So that's a great question. It does not matter how long your program is. 4 weeks is the minimum that we would ask for programs to. Programs to participate in the Align site, 4 weeks would be the minimum duration that we're looking at. But if you operate for significantly longer than that, that's fine too. And yes, we would ask that you collect attendance data for the full duration of your program. I think attendance data would be the only thing that would be impacted because the survey administration would still happen at the beginning and end. The observer visit is just a one-time visit that would still happen once. If your 10 weeks is serving more than one cohort of students, so if your model is that you have one group of students come for 5 weeks and another group come for 5 weeks, that would be something we would need to work with you in offline, one-on-one, to figure out the best way to use the tools and track attendance that meet your needs as well as ours. Okay, so we'll give everybody a few more minutes to think about any last-minute questions you had. And again, our contact information is here. You can write it down. We'll be emailing out these PowerPoint slides in addition to a recording of the webinar probably tomorrow. So if you have any questions that come up after the webinar, feel free to reach out and ask us. So Maggie asked, is there any connection with being an Align site and gaining access to staff and volunteer recruitment?
That's a great question. In terms, that potentially could be something we could talk about one-on-one to dive into more detail about what you mean by that. But in terms of connecting sites to individual potential staff members, we do not do that with the summer learning community, but perhaps you may mean something else. So we definitely could dive into, feel free to ask a follow-up question, Maggie, here if you like, or we can talk about that one-on-one. For those of you who attended the summit, in relation to staff recruitment, some of you may have attended the workshops about how some organizations use their PRISM report to train staff. So that is a direct link between this work in staff recruitment and retention and competencies. Some sites use the PRISM Report to cater their training to returning in new staff members to improve the quality of their programming.
Yeah, especially since a lot of the things captured on the PRISM relate to staff delivery of program content. So to what extent do they build in opportunities for students to think critically and solve problems on their own? So the results from, even if you don't use the HSA skill assessment, there's a lot of information from the 2 program quality tools that allows programs to dive into how their content is delivered and what that means for opportunities for youth to develop skills. And so that's a lot of our sessions throughout the fall and winter and spring, the peer learning communities focus on that as well, and what it looks like and what program quality means for training staff, staff interacting with students. A lot of really interesting things that come out of the program quality data.
And our Site Manager Summer Institute, and the one we referred to that's in late May, that's going to be geared toward train the trainer model. So the site managers who attend that session and then leave will be equipped with tools to take what they learned at that institute and apply it to their own staff training or their own staff management before and during summer.
Okay, so we'll give everybody another minute or so to ask any last-minute questions, and then that will be it.
Okay, everyone. Well, these were great questions that all of you asked, so we really appreciate all of your questions and the engagement today on the webinar. And of course, as Katie mentioned, Katie and myself are available for questions after this, so please feel free to call or email. And we, again, appreciate your attendance on today's webinar, and we're very excited about this summer. As many of you can see outside, we're starting to see more grass every day. So summer is around the corner. And we're very excited for it, and we hope you are as well. And we'll be in touch soon about next steps, including the commitment form for summer 2015. And until then, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much, and have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.